Hello everyone, welcome to my series 31 Days to Better Photoshop Design. I'm Veronica, and during this 31 days I'll be your guide to a better understanding of Photoshop and design. To begin this series, we're going to start with some basics, Photoshop tools. In this video, we will deal specifically with the selection tools. I'll show you how to access them, what they are for, and how to use them. Be sure to visit my blog and download the Printable Handy Photoshop Tool Guide infographic. Link will be in the description. The selection tools include 4 separate tools. You have your Move tool, your Marquee tool, the Lasso tool, and the Quick Selection tool. The Move tool, found right here at the very top of your Tools panel, is activated by simply clicking on the button, or you can use keyboard shortcut V to access this tool. And what the Move tool is for basically moving around objects, documents, layer panels, everything on your Photoshop interface. So once the Move tool is activated, you can see here I can move this document around. I can dock it. I also use it to access any of my tools, any of my options, activate layers, turn layers on, turn layers off, and of course, moving objects around on the document. It's also used for moving selections around. I can also use it to move a selection. Let's say if I made a selection here, but I want to move this selection to the center. There you can see I've moved my selection. Also with the Move tool, you have a couple of options that you can select on your options bar. For instance, you have here Auto Select. And what Auto Select does is, if you look here, I have 2 layers selected. You could just click on Auto Select, and then wherever you click on your document, as long as you click on an object, it is going to automatically select that object's layer. So as you can see here, my layers change once I simply click on it. If I turn that off, that option is no longer available. Also available to you in the options bar is Show Transform controls. As you can see, when I click here, the Show Transform tool now is available, and that allows me to quickly resize my object. Next, we're moving on to the Marquee tool, which will be right here. It's the second tool on your tools bar. Now, to access your Marquee tool, you could just simply click on it, or you can use keyboard shortcut M. And inside the Marquee tool, you can see here there's a little tiny arrow at the bottom right hand corner, and if I hover it, you can see it tells you it's the Marquee tool. But if I right click or click directly on this little arrow here, you can see that more tool options open up. You have a rectangular Marquee tool, which of course is going to make rectangles. Optionally, you can hold down the Shift key to make a perfect square. You also have the elliptical Marquee tool, which is going to make ovals, and again, hold down the Shift key to create a perfect circle. Your singular row tools, and you have the option to make a single row horizontal or a single row column. And let me show you how these work. So with my Marquee tool selected, I'm going to go to rectangular Marquee tool and just quickly simply make a rectangular marquee. And now I have a rectangle selected, and I can use this to crop out an area of my photo. And I will show you how it will look if I use the Shift key. Now you can see I'm actually drawing a circle, and I can move that. And I can move that around to center the object. And there you can see I've again made another selection. And the elliptical marquee will allow me to create an oval. Or holding down the Shift key, I make a circle. And then again, I can just position it. And there you can see my selection. Now, the single row marquee tool, what exactly is that and why would I ever need it? This is great for making graphs. It's great for web design, creating straight lines, and basically how you would use it. I'm going to create a new layer. So click on single row marquee, horizontal, and then come over on your document and simply click there, and now you have a straight line. I can then choose to right click and choose stroke. And then it'll ask me what kind of stroke do I want to make. You can set your pixel width, you can set your color, inside, center, or outside, and blending modes, transparency. So what I'm going to do, so you can see this really well, is create a 10 pixel stroke, and I'll say OK, and deselect. And now you can see here, I have created a completely straight line. I'll recolor that, so perhaps you can see it a little bit better. And then the same thing would apply if you wanted to create a single column marquee. And you just simply come here. This time I'm going to say 20 pixels. And that's a simple way for you to make graphs, charts, or lines, or whatever. So that is how you would use your marquee tools. Now, another option in the options bar, what you have is 4 little icons here. You have the very first one, which is for creating a new selection. So anytime you want to just make simple selections, you would just have that checked, and that's probably where you're going to have it selected most of the time, because most of the time you are just making a new selection. You also have the option to add to your selection. So if I click here, with a selection made, I can just go ahead and click selections anywhere I want, and as you can see, it is adding to the selection. Now, you can also do this very same step by simply holding down the Shift key anytime you have a selection active on your document. The next one is subtract from your selection. We're just going to make some selections inside of our selection. And it looks like everything is selected, but if I use my paint bucket and do a fill, you will see that actually only a portion is selected. So now I have this little interesting frame here, and I could use that for anything. So that is what your subtract from selection will do. Next up is intersect with selection. And this one is a little bit trickier. So let's say I wanted to create a circle. And what it's going to do is merge these together and create an interesting shape. So that's what intersect with selections will do. Okay, so moving on, we are now going to go to our lasso tool. And lasso tools are great. You have 3 options. Once again, if you click here on the little tiny icon in the corner, right click, you can open up these extra tools. You have your lasso tool, your Polygon lasso tool, which is the one I use the most often, in fact, almost always. And you have the magnetic lasso tool. The Polygon lasso tool, what it does is it allows you to make selections in a drawing motion. So as you're drawing, if you just want to make some really quick selections, you can just go ahead in there and do that. Now, the thing about this lasso tool is it's not very accurate. I mean, you really need to take your time if you want to have exact selections. Another thing is that once you start drawing, you cannot stop. So if I'm drawing here, so if the phone rings or whatever happens, I need to keep this mouse connected or I'm going to lose my selection or it will close. So when using the Polygon Lasso tool, remember, simply start drawing your object. Let's say you want to make a little heart shape and continue until the path is closed. And you know that the path is closed. Okay, so your next tool, which is much more powerful, is your Polygon Lasso tool, which actually helps you to draw shapes. Now, what the Polygon Lasso tool does, it allows you to not only make a selection, but as you can see here, you can stop and start, create different points along your selection. You can draw and lift up your mouse at the same time. Now, some other neat options that you have is when you are using your Polygon Lasso tool, if you want to make straight lines, you simply hold down the Shift key and it locks your selection into place so you can draw a straight line. Next up, if you hold down your Alt key, you can use this as a Polygon Lasso tool. So with the Alt key selected, I can just begin drawing freehand. And once I release the Alt key, I can continue making my selections in either straight lines by holding down the Shift key or clicking and going from point to point. So as you can see, the Polygon Lasso tool is much more powerful. And then if you look here, you can see that when I get close to my point, I get a little tiny circle. That circle means that I am about to close my selection. And once you click down, your selection will be closed. And there you have a really funky selection. And that is the Polygon Lasso tool. Next up is the Magnetic Lasso. The Magnetic Lasso is also a very handy tool. And how it works is it will basically help to separate images from the background. It works off of contrast. So as you can see, as I'm going around this image, it is basically clinging to the white area. And sometimes you need to tell it where to go. If it happens to mess up, you simply click backspace until you get back to where you want it to be, and then it will continue to go on. Now, when you're drawing, you can click down with your mouse or tap with your graphics tablet to make sure you create your anchor points. And then you can see here that basically it's snapping itself right around that grid. Okay, and I'm just going to finish up right here. Then instead of selecting this whole thing out, I'm just going to come here, close that, and then I'm going to select that out so you can see what it looks like. And that's basically how you would use the Magnetic Lasso tool. Okay. The final tool for making selections is the Quick Selection tool, which is accessed by keyboard shortcut W. I forgot to mention that the Lasso tool is accessed by keyboard shortcut L. Okay, so on to the Quick Selection tool. In this tool, if you right click, you'll see you have basically two tools. You have your Quick Selection tool and your Magic Wand tool. The Magic Wand tool is the one that I use most often, but both are very handy. So how it works is, with your Quick Selection tool selected, you would just come here and you can see that I have set a brush shape which is round and it's 30 pixels. So this is a very large object. So what I would do is just come in here and make this a little bit larger. And you want to make it large enough to fit the document. So here I'm going to go with 130. And then I just come here and start painting out my selection. And look what it's doing. It's selecting all of the white area and leaving out the background and allowing me to really quickly select this flower. Pretty neat, huh? And now you can see that I have basically made a very quick selection, and you can always clean that up if you need to. Okay, and then next up is the Magic Wand tool. So the Magic Wand tool works in pretty much the same way, but you do have an option here to set your tolerance. So tolerance default would usually be around 20, but you can lower that or make it higher depending on how well it's selecting. So I'm going to go at 20, and then I'm going to begin selecting the white. And I will come here and click on Add to Selection, or again, I could simply hold down my Shift key. So I'm going to just continue selecting here, and you can see what it's doing and how much of the white it's selecting. Now, because I have a really high contrast background, I know that I can boost this up quite a bit more. So I'm going to try it at 50. And now you can see the selection was much stronger, much cleaner, and I was able to get a lot of the image in all at once. Now here what happened is, because the tolerance was a little bit too high, it went and selected in some of this green area. So basically what I would just do is either step backwards, and then you can see that, or I would just go over to my history panel and delete that last step. So now that I know that the 50 is going to be too hard to continue on from here, I could go ahead and lower this back down to, let's say, 20, and select these edges here. And as you can see, it's much better. And then I would raise it up again to 50 and select inside the center here. I could probably even raise it even more. And you can continue selecting until all the area is selected, or you could just come right back up here to your Polygon Lasso tool and just draw out those selections, because it'll save you a lot of time rather than clicking every one individual. So now I have my flower selected again. And this time I'm going to show you how to do it if I were selecting out the background. You could do this either way, whichever one you feel is going to be the quickest for you. So I'm going to now select the background. And as you can see, with a tolerance of 50, there's still a lot of selecting that I would have to do. So in this case, it was easier to go ahead and just select the flower, but you could also do this by selecting the background. And if you have areas that you need to add, you just switch your selection tool. And now I'm going to select these areas here, and it'll just save me time from having to select out all the different little areas that have not been selected. And then do as much as this as you can. And then if you need to, you just go back in either with your Polygon Lasso tool and select out areas that were missed. And then with your selection complete, you just simply hit delete, and you have removed your background. And I do believe that concludes the selection tools And I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. If you did, of course, remember, subscribe, share, like, and comment. And of course, tune in for the very next tutorial in this series. Thanks for watching.